Welcome once again to another episode of Simple Groundwork and Diorama Techniques, the Model Builders series, with me, your host and instructor, Bill Grigg. As usual, my trusty Cape Cod cameraman is behind the lens, old trusty Dave in his luau outfit over there. And who's this guy? Where'd this guy come from? This is my buddy Steve Delory, and Steve Delory is a car modeler. Now, I am not a good car modeler, so that's why I've brought Steve in. And Steve is going to take you through the basics of simple car building and give you some prep work and some information on that. So, without further ado, let's go into the Model Builders series and learn a little bit about doing some car modeling with my friend and master car modeler, Steve Delory.
Well, thanks, Bill, and thanks for having me. First, I'd like to, what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to explain some of the techniques that you'd use when spraying with a spray can, as opposed to, I do a lot of airbrushing also, but I've found that where I travel a lot and I do a lot of modeling on the run, that using the spray cans is a lot more advantageous for me. And another thing about the spray cans, it's a lot easier. It's quicker to set up. It just makes it a lot easier. First thing I want to do is, here I have basically a domestic model. They're all basically, they come the same. They're wrapped in a bag, plastic bag. They do this to keep them separate from the plastic chrome pieces. Now the chrome, one thing you do once you start building a model, I do, is I take the chrome and wrap it in either tissue or something like that, or an old rag or something like that, just to keep from getting scratched.
Yeah, put it back in the original bag.
And put it back in the original, or you can use this bag actually.
Yeah.
You know, take the model kit out, stick the chrome in the bag, and then stick it back in, because where I move around a lot and my stuff gets rattled around, one thing that happens to this chrome, it's very delicate, and you can get little scratches on it. And if you're building really fine models for contests and stuff, they're really finicky about stuff like that. So you want to keep your chrome as shiny as possible. So you want to take care of that. That's very important. But the first thing I do, now Billy says he doesn't wash his models before he paints them and stuff. That's pretty good. I think if you're handling them a lot, you can get away with that. But the thing about spray paint model cars is you'll notice there's a lot large flat areas on the sides, the roof, the hoods, and if you try to spray paint this directly without cleaning it or really giving it a good soak, you'll see what they call fish eyes. It looks like a little eyes of fish all over it, and they'll pop, and you won't notice it till, the first coat might go on well, the second coat might look okay, and then when you get the third or fourth, then all of a sudden they just pop open and it looks terrible. I mean,
So in other words, that release agent kind of permeates its way up through the paint.
Sometimes it takes a little while for it to act, but I guess what it is now that everyone's telling me is they used to use oils, and basic oils, they'd spray in the molds, and that would pop out no problem. I think they're still using that mostly in airplanes. But the car models, it seems like they're popping these new molds out so fast, and they're spraying them with some type of silicone, I guess. And the silicone is the release stuff, the release agent that is causing all the problems with the paint, I believe. Now,
So
first,
you would definitely suggest that
I would
if
suggest,
you build a car model, absolutely a soapy clean wash to get all that residue off.
definitely soak. I would soak the whole kit. What I do is I take my whole everything. I even stick the chrome. Some people, it's not necessary because chrome has its,
Yeah,
you're not painting it anyway. But
Right.
I usually, because you're going to be scraping pieces of the chrome to glue to the other parts, give that a soak too. So you throw everything right in the kitchen sink, a couple of squirts of detergent, hot as you can get it out of the tap.
Oh, really?
As hot as you can get out of the tap, soak it in there, because it has to be above boiling to really affect the plastic.
Ah.
So you soak it in there. I just fill the sink with some suds, and I let the sink drain itself maybe an hour.
Yeah.
And I'll
then
come
make
back.
sure you rinse it good and
And then
clean.
give it a good rinse. Now, if you're in a hurry, you can go ahead and scrub it, and you can expedite the whole system right down fast. But it's very important to make sure you clean, give it a good cleaning. That is very important, especially with car models. Now, the next thing is when you open, the first thing I do when I open models, I wash it. And usually I'll have all the parts soaking. When I'm doing that, I'll take the body and separate it from the sprues or from the mold, the pieces here. I'll take the body itself and I'll clean this up. Now, cleaning up a model kit, you say, well, you look at all models are basically the same. They come, the car bodies, when they shoot out the body like this, you have to look for seam marks. Now, the seam marks, they're pretty good actually. They used to be huge. On each corner you could find a huge seam mark, and there'd be no problem to sand that down.
Now, what are the seams caused by, Steve?
Well, basically the seams are caused by, the mold has to be made in two pieces. The model is made by squeezing two molds together, and they squirt the plastic in, then they pull it out and you're left with the mold. So everywhere there's a separation between the two pieces, the two sides of the mold, you're going to have a seam. Right. They've gotten so good, I mean, they've gotten so good with their mold making that they keep this to a tiny, actually they've gotten so good that you have to really look for them, which is good.
Yeah, but in older kits,
In the older kits, they're really...
mold seam is definitely there.
Yes, and you have to look for them. I mean, if you don't take care of them, when it comes to a contest, somebody will find them. And the molds, the seam marks, they'll a lot of times in a kit, they'll try to get them to match up the body lines of the car. So you really have to look for them. In a kit like this, I always know exactly where to look for them. They're always, because of the size of the kit, they have a roof, and then the side, they'll always put the molds where they're too cool to come together, so it's going to run somewhere along here. Usually what they do is they put them off of the top.
Yeah, offset, yeah.
So usually you have the mold, the seam marks will run here, here, and off the corners of the greenhouse, they call the greenhouse, the roof of the car. So always look for those. This kit here is a fairly new release. It's a domestic kit.
Is it a model of?
This is a Dodge Charger, 1967, and it's a beautiful kit. But again, if you're looking for the mold marks, you can see them here. There's light ones there.
Yeah.
There, but these kits are actually pretty good. But what I do is, while the kit is soaking, I'll have the parts soaking in one thing. I'll take out a fresh blade of my X-Acto knife.
Number 11 blade?
I use a number 11 blade. And I shouldn't have said X-Acto, but my little razor trusty knife here. And what I'll do is, I'll look for those little mold marks, and I'll scrape them lightly with this. I'll scrape them off with this fresh blade. And you can do the same thing with sandpaper. The only thing with sandpaper, I use a lot of sanding films. I use automotive grade sandpaper. Usually, I start with anything below 400 for car models is really, really coarse. So 400 and up. I'll start with like a 400 grit, maybe go to 800, and then I'll worry about the other stuff later.
Now, once you go to 800, also you keep your sandpaper wet as you sand?
Yes, I always use wet, and that's one thing when you're doing the cars being soaked and all that. You can do your wet sanding if you got any to do on the corners.
So even with your 400 grit sandpaper for your initial sanding, you would do that wet?
Yes, knowing that one thing about 400, I don't use 400 knowing that I'm going right to 800.
Right.
Because 400 is going to leave big scratches, which will really be, be noticeable on the kit when you're done. Right. So you have to go to, even 800 is a little coarse to be using for model cars. You'll notice when you go to a car deal, a parts store or something like that, you look through their sanding grits and all this, the sandpaper they have, you'll notice that they're 400, 800, then it's 1200, 1000, 1200, 15, 2000. People like 2000, you feel it. It doesn't even feel like there's anything there. It just feels like sand, like a piece of paper. But believe me, by rubbing that over and keeping it wet, it's very important to keep sanding films wet when you're sanding, because not only is it lubricate, but it keeps the heat from building up. And the heat, along with
the friction of the sanding,
yes,
keeps that heat down.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing that you get. Otherwise, if you try to do it dry, you'll feel it. The stuff balls. It feels like it's balling up or something.
Which can cause minute scratches.
Yeah, and everything. That's why you want to keep it all nice and smooth. The water keeps everything flowing off. So that's the way to go with that.
Okay, Steve. So you are going to show us now how you proceed about taking care of this car body here?
Yeah, so the next thing you do, Billy, is you want to decide how you're going to, we want to get this what I do, I mean, a lot of guys, they'll paint the model, and then they'll do their polishing and sanding after they paint it. Now, to me, that's crazy. I think you should do all your polish and do your body work before you do any painting at all. Get your body work done how you want it. You spray on your paint. If the body's prepped right, the body will go on. The paint will go on so nice that you don't have to do any sanding afterwards.
Right.
So that to me, that's the way you should do it.
Folks, what you're doing here is what Steve is saying is if you start with a good smooth body, it would be like spraying on a piece of glass. If the glass is smooth and clean and level, then your paint that goes on top of it has to be level. So go ahead, Steve.
Exactly.
Keep on going.
That's exactly. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my chrome here and stick them. This is very important. Take care of your chrome. Stick it back in the plastic bag to keep it from getting scratched. And then the only time you want to eat, don't take it out of the plastic again until you have to take the parts out.
Right, so you need to
So just
part.
you keep this in your box, keep it separate. Okay, now so we'll take the body and we'll start prepping the body. Now, there's different products you can use. This is a what they call a heavy-duty cleaner. It's some people call it a compound wax or a polishing compound. It goes by names of various names
Right.
by different companies. But it's basically they sell this in all the big box stores, any part store. Ask them for a tub of their polish. It comes in 2 different colors. You notice this is red. There's also a white. The white is usually a lot finer, a little bit finer, and that's more like polish. And this is more like, this will take a little bit of the plastic off. This has a little more
So you
coarseness.
want to have a little abrasive.
You want a little bit of abrasiveness when you use it. I use it directly on the car bodies, and after you polish them with this, the thing that people get scared about, they think about polishing silver or something. They're going to be there for hours rubbing it. I'm telling you, I'll polish this car body right now in 2 minutes. It'll be ready to paint, and you won't believe the difference this makes before any other preparation thing you can do. I mean, of all the things you can do, this is, to me, the simplest and gets the best results.
Yeah, believe me, folks,
I mean,
I'm not a car modeler,
I've done tons of these.
but ever since I've seen Steve do this technique, this just makes absolutely total sense to prep a body. It just makes complete sense.
Now this is right out of the can, right out of the tub.
And you're using just a regular old
I take a piece of
cotton
t-shirt. I cut up into actually I use little strips. I have a couple strips that are real small for small parts, and then I have a bigger piece that I use.
Yep.
That I use in the bigger top of the
and
body.
You just keep it right in the can with everything.
Now I keep these damp. I'll dampen these up, throw them right in the can, and leave them damp in there. And the dampness from the rags also preserves the paste itself,
Preserves the paste.
so the paste won't dry out. Because I've had this, I'll use the same tub for 3 years.
Now, what are we talking price on this tub?
Less than $3.
Less than $3.
This is very inexpensive.
So again, folks, keeping it on the inexpensive. Good.
And this is actually, using this paste is so much cheaper it's more cheaper than the films or any of the sandpapers. It actually is the best. But I'm going to do this right now, while we're standing there talking. And all you have to do is give this a rub. You can feel.
Tilt it most of the camera can see it.
Yep. And I'm just doing, basically what I'm doing is just rubbing down the sides with it. And you're saying, geez, what I'm actually doing is making sure I cover every bit of the plastic with just like a wipe.
And I see that you're not rubbing extremely hard.
Nope. And I go right on to the next piece. See, that's the thing about when you say polish, everyone gets afraid because they think you're going to be there for a half an hour. Elbow grease and all that stuff. And this, you can see how I'm doing this. Actually, I'm just giving the plastic a wipe with this stuff. And as you do it, you can actually feel the plastic feels really smooth at first, like a real piece of clean plastic. And then after you rub it with this, it feels like it puts almost like a little bit of a tooth on it. It just scratches the surface enough.
You can feel it pulling a little bit.
Yeah, just a tiny bit. And once you feel that, it goes from smooth to almost like a tiny bit of coarseness feel to it. You're done. And just rub that.
Really?
Just take the real fine smoothness out. And that's all you got to do.
I've always wondered how you did this.
And this, you're seeing it right here. This is it. And this body right here.
I'm with what you're saying because I figured when you said, prep the body, I figured, well, You must sit there for
hours, and everyone
a
thinks.
couple hours and rub this body.
And the same thing, you just on every flat surface, you just want to make sure you're giving it a rub and rubbing this compound across the surface. It's not a matter of you changing the shape. You're not doing anything. You actually, I think what you're doing is taking a tiny,
like a micron.
just a micron film
film.
of the plastic off. And what you're doing is really you're turning it from a real shiny plastic into a.
Now, see what most people don't realize. Even though that plastic appears to be dead flat smooth, it's not. There's little tiny pits in all the plastic. That's real good for aircraft and military models, but in the car world, that is a no-no.
Exactly.
Folks.
And no, they one thing about car, they want shiny. They want shiny.
And if you compete like Steve does, and is the award winner that Steve is, this is one of the tricks, is how he gets there.
Okay, now you see how long I spent on that? That's completely done. Now the one thing that's great about this product, or all these products, is they're made to go right in the sink, made to go right underwater. This will wash off completely. I'll take a toothbrush with me. I'll stick this in just because you see the fine cuts in the engravings there for the cowl.
Yeah, and the grill.
And
yeah,
there's, the side panels. You got to make sure the door jambs are. So when you put this in, soak it, give it a good wash, and it being a white body, this red stuff really sticks out. If there's any left anyway, you'll see it. So just wash it off. It's water soluble. It'll clean off. Rinse it, and then just
use an old toothbrush to get into the engraved lines.
If I need it on like this, really not too many engraved lines on this particular kit.
Yep.
Some models are more intricate than the others.
Yep.
So depending on what you have, but just soak this, and it'll wash out completely in detergent.
Obviously, you would do the same thing with a hood.
Yep. Exactly. Now I'm doing this part. The first thing I do actually when I'm thinking of this is I look what parts are gonna be painted body color. You have to take all your body color parts and paint them at the same time.
And prep them
at the same time. I do that too. So what I'm gonna look for right now, I'm gonna grab my trusty sprue cutter here.
Yep.
I'm gonna look at this scoop here that go on the hood. Now, I'm the kind of guy who probably would build a car without the hood, but because there's a chance maybe I'll use it, I'll prep it and paint it anyway. Cut that out, put it there. Here's the hood for the car. This is going to get the same prep. So I'll show you. It'll just take me a second here to do. Just giving it a good
how little time you spend on this.
Yes, and everyone thinks, what do? You polish it? And they're like, you polish it? And they think hours. And this is it. I just polished this part right here.
This is a real secret, folks. Steve has given up a secret here.
This is huge. To the car building guys, I've showed this to a couple of guys and told them about this, and they've come back with just they compete with them. I'm like, all right, guys.
And now we're putting it on film, folks, and blowing Stevie out of the water.
It's okay.
I
don't mind. I don't mind.
Climbed.
But again, now we'll look for other parts. Now a car like this is going to have. It's going to have a bumper, a couple of bumpers probably front.
Now I notice you're not referring to any instruction sheets here, because you've done it so much that you just...
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, basically car models are all the same. You're going to always pull the body out first, take care of the body, take care of the hood. On a car, usually there's this particular kit there isn't, because this one has chrome bumpers and it has a chrome wraparound underneath the rear. Usually you have a body section here also. So when you're pulling out a car kit, look at the instructions. Everything that's going to be painted the body color, you want to prep first, like I'm doing here. So it would be the hood. Sometimes there's a trunk cut out. Sometimes the doors are cut out. The underhood piece here and the underhood piece back there, and the scoop. And make sure they all get prepped and painted at the same time. So when you get these pieces painted, set aside, you can have them completely ready to go, and they can be drying for, like I said, I use a lacquer paint. My finished paints, you can paint them and handle them right away, but in reality, they probably take 3 days on a lacquer paint job to complete what they call gas out. And that's for everything,
So in other words, cure
completely.
But they call lacquer paint gassing out.
They call it gassing out because, even though you can handle
It must degas.
yeah,
It must
yeah.
actually degas.
In 10 minutes you can handle it, but it's still really, really not cured 100%.
It's not cured.
Right.
Remember, folks, just because a paint is dry and you can touch it does not necessarily mean that the paint has cured.
And
That's very essential, especially if you're going to go onto the top of the paint with washes the way that I do. You better make sure that that paint is cured, not just dry.
very true.
Now, do you want to wash this now, or?
Now we can go ahead and this is ready for wash. Give it a submerge it, and like I said, I use detergent and a toothbrush, scrub it all down and get it, and then it will be ready to paint.
Do you want to do that and now come back?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and wash this, and well, actually I'm not going to paint this model. I'm going to paint a different model, but
Okay.
I'll bring in another
But
model.
This is how we prep.
This is how we prep it.
All right, gang, stand by. We will be back after Steve washes his car body.
And as you can see, we've taken the body over and washed it off. Just a complete wash with fresh water, a little detergent, cleans up, nice and really neat. But one thing you'll notice if you look at this, if you in the reflection, you'll notice it just looks a little bit duller. Just by rubbing it, a light rubbing with that compound, I don't know what it does. It does something to the plastic. It treats it or just gives it a little bit of tooth. So when I spray this, now this body is ready for spraying. And now we'll move on to the spraying of the body itself. I'm not going to spray this particular body because I'm not ready to build this kit, but I have another body we're going to spray. And I'll show you the techniques we're going to use for spraying next. And here we are with our setup. As you'll notice, the paint is soaking in hot water. Well, you can't tell it's hot, but it is. What I do is I recommend anytime you're using spray paints, with these lacquer paints, it's best to warm them up. Now what I do is I use hot water that is hot, as hot as I can put my finger in. Now you don't want boiling water or anything like that because you can't mess with the cans, it'll explode. If it's just hot enough to put your finger in, that's good enough. So what we do is we'll soak the paint till the paint warms up, then I'll take it out and we're ready to go. Now you'll notice in the cabinet here Billy has a neat spray booth.
My
Sophisticated spray booth. I have the kits already set up. This is how basically I'll spray them. This is how I'm going to leave them to spray. These kits, you'll notice, they look nice and clean because they are very clean. That's one important thing with car model is you must spray over clean plastic. You don't want any dust. I mean any dust at all will show up. And car model guys don't like dust. They're kind of freaks when it comes to that. So
Dust is
it's the car model's enemy. So give your can a good. I've been rattling these cans. I've been shaking for a while. Give them a good shake, and we'll start with the hood of the car. Now, one thing about spray painting is you're gonna spray. I usually go about 10 inches. This is about 10 inches here. Some people like it a little closer, a little further away. But what you want to do is you want to start your spray before you get to your part. Spray past it and then stop. All right, so what we'll do, I'll start with the back edge first, side edge, and then I'll give it one across the middle. And that's it. 3 light coats, and we'll set this piece down to dry. We'll go to our next piece. Now, everyone says, well, Steve, you're not doing much painting here. Well, I'm going to do this 4 times. That's why.
One thing you want to keep in mind, folks, is that when you're spraying with lacquers can take off on you and run like crazy. So that's why Steve is being so gentle. And you also notice he's put on a rubber glove to protect his hand against the overspray.
Yes, because this is very important unless you want paint all over your hands. But again, start past the model. And now you're saying, geez, you're not getting full coverage, or you have to realize that we're going to be doing this 4 times. And you're not really trying to cover the whole model.
You're
So
not
that,
looking for complete
not
color coverage,
complete-
you're looking to grab some tooth.
just want the first, especially the first coat, it's very important, like Billy said, the tooth, is for the paint to actually stick. Now, we'll give that a minute to dry, and then we'll come back and continue. And as you can see here, I have flipped the model over and painted the inside. It's always good to paint, especially car models. A lot of times the interior panels of the cars will be the same as the exterior body color. As you can see, I flipped these pieces over, and now we'll paint the other side, the outside of them. And this piece here, I'll take off and flip over, and on the next segment, we'll be painting just the outside.
Now, Steve, how long have you waited between your applications of paint? How long have you?
Now we just painted these probably 5 minutes ago. So
5 minutes ago.
You can handle this paint in 5 minutes. You can handle it. You know, most of the lacquer paints are like that. Now enamels, on the other hand, you have to treat completely different. When you're painting enamel paint, you have to cover them while they're drying so no dust gets on them, because they'll be wet for a while. They take so much longer to cure. Yeah. That's why they use lacquer in the automotive business, because they can paint and do body work so fast. They don't have to wait between between systems and steps, so they go from one to the other.
And you are definitely better off painting car models with lacquer paint versus a spray can with enamel in it.
Well, I think so. I mean, the advantages are so much better, I think. And another thing that you realize is that lacquer paint, it goes on a lot thinner than enamel paint. So consequently, you lose a lot of detail with enamel paints when you're spraying them. Enamel paint's good in an airbrush because you can thin it down to the point you like. But spraying it out of a can, it's a whole different thing.
Now, I also noticed that you didn't prime any of these parts with any type of a primer.
No, that's these new model paints, these new lacquer model paints are specifically made for plastic, so you don't really need a primer. I mean, it depends on what I'm doing for colors. If I'm changing colors, if I'm painting like one thing you'll notice in the older models, they used to mold everything in the color plastic, which is terrible if you're somebody who really likes to paint and finish your models, right, because you have to fight against the color of the plastic. So you have to seal it and everything else. Now the plastic, everything they're molding in white, so you can paint directly onto that. The white is just like a primer. It's perfect, a perfect base. Now, having said that, just make sure that you're painting on white. Right. Some model colors, they'll come in gray. Some will come in, they'll model them in metallic purple or whatever color.
You're going to show us the difference between that as well.
Yes, and different bases, you can achieve a lot of different results by painting different colors underneath the color that you paint. So a base coat, as opposed to then you put your finish coat over it. Now, using different color base coats, you can change completely the color of the paint you're putting on top of it. We'll show you that in the next segment we have coming up. All right, we'll take a little break here, and then I'll show you how we're going to paint these.
Okay.
So here we are back, and you'll notice that I have the paints back in the hot water again, giving it a minute to warm up. You want to do that every time you take a break. Put more hot water in your hot water thing and warm your paint up. And you always just warm, not really hot. You just want, like I said, just want to warm the paint. All right, so what we're going to do is you'll notice that I've flipped the pieces over. I painted the interior of these pieces first, and now I put them back the right side up. Also, the body, I flipped that over, and now that's back. Because initially I should have painted the inside first, and I skipped that step. So I showed you that a minute ago. But now we have these both on they have their finished surfaces facing top, and that's how we're going to finish them. The insides have been done on all this stuff, so now we're just going to finish coat. Okay, so I'm going to put on my first coat here. Again, it's the same way. The paint is warmed. Start your spray. Passed. 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 That's all I want to do. Just get some color on the whole piece. It doesn't look great yet, but we're not looking for that finished color yet. Same thing on this. Now I always spray in I always do 4 swipes. I'll do like the back edge, like I'm doing here. Side. Then I'll do the front. Then I'll do this side. I'll do the back end because I didn't do a very good job the first time. And then maybe one time down the middle. But one thing about spray painting is you never stop on your subject. Always run your paint past. It doesn't matter if you do tons of coat, whatever you're doing, never stop on your subject. Go past it and stop and start before. That way you get an even finish on the whatever you paint. Now this is getting a little heavy on this piece. I gotta be careful on the next one. All right, now we'll bring out the car body. This is ready to go.
Now remember, folks, if you get a little too heavy with lacquer paint, keep in mind that could run on you. So therefore, you are dusting this paint on.
That's why you want to do.
What he's doing.
That's why you want to go real fast every time. Now you'll notice that I'm tipping this up because I want my first coat to go like underneath the body. I'm looking underneath my first shot every way around. I want to go underneath. So I'm going to hold this here. First shot, second shot, third shot. Same thing. I do 3 shots on each one. I'll go 1, 2 right down the sides. Third one's at an angle pointing down. Okay, 1 right at it, 2, 3 down at it. Okay, again, this will be the final 1, 2, 3. And now I'm done with those. Now the surface, the top of the model hasn't been painted yet, so I'll just give it 1, 2, just like that. So now it has a basic light paint on all the exterior surfaces. And you can see this, it might be a little light here and light there. It's not really finished in. That's fine because we're going to add 3 more coats so everything will be colored perfectly. So now we'll set them aside. In between coats, I usually wait like between 5 and 10 minutes. So we'll give these a minute to set and we'll shoot our next shot. All right, so here we are. We're going to continue on with our spraying. We've given 10 minutes between coats. It's flashed. You can see it takes on like a dull finish. It looks nice. I don't see any dust, Bill. Nice dust-free environment we have here. All right, so we're going to continue on with our spraying. Okay, once again, spray past, spray past, spray past. And that looks pretty nice. Now that's 2 coats right there. I'm shooting for 4 coats on these. And actually, this is covering pretty good, so.
Yeah, you can actually see the color build.
And that's 2 right there, and I think that's looking pretty good. So I think
that looks really good.
4 is going to look pretty awesome. Okay, again with our body, we want to start underneath, shooting up at the bottom first, then the front right at it, and then down. Same thing with the side. We're going to shoot up, right at the side, then down angle. Okay, the nose, the same thing. Up angle, right at it, down angle. Try to do this consistently all the time, and you see your finishes will come out better and better the more you do it. Okay, and now we've completely finished the sides, so we'll go to the top. 1, 2, 3, and that's it. It's starting to, maybe not, the top doesn't look as good as the other pieces, but 2 more coats and it'll be there.
2 more coats and you'll be fine.
So again, we're going to give these 5 to 10 minutes to flash, to set up, and then we'll do 2 more coats and they should be done. Okay, now we're going to put on our final coat. Now, sometimes I'll go with 3, 4, or 5 coats. This one here, this will be our 5th coat. So again, you look at the model, see how your finish is coming out. The one thing you don't want to do is you want to do everything the same on every coat. You don't want to change things. You're thinking, well, this is the final coat, I'll put on a little heavier. No, that isn't how it works. You put this final coat on just like you did the 4 before it. So the same way, I'm going to start at the back, do 1 shot, past, 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 and then 1 right across the middle. And that's it. That piece is finished. We'll pick up the next piece, same thing. I don't see any dust anywhere, it looks good. So we'll start at the front, we'll give it our 1 shot, side 1 shot, back 1 shot, side 1 shot, and then 1 right across the middle. And that's it, looks pretty good.
That looks real good. Also remember, folks, that lacquer thinner is a self-leveling paint.
Yes.
So that really tends to, help with the shiny finish.
and one coat eats into the next one, so it really helps. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Same thing here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, because I haven't done the top at all, I'll do 3 across the top. 1, 2, 3. And I'll give it a look. Looks pretty good. Now, I do see one piece of dust there, but that'll come out when I polish it. So this looks pretty good. Actually, I'm going to dust the whole car now. Give it one final dusting.
Kind of give it a wet coat.
This is what they call a wet coat in lacquer.
You notice how fast he's moving, folks, to do this.
Just keep it moving at all times. And it actually looks wet. It'll actually
Yes, it
look
does.
like
It
it's
looks
dripping.
real good.
So now we'll set this down,
That looks real good.
and that's it.
That's an amazing job out of a spray can, Stephen. Amazing job. Nice color, too.
Yeah.
What's that, Italian red?
This is Italian red.
Yeah.
Now, one thing about lacquer paint, I should say, during the summer months, when you're spraying lacquer paint, if the humidity is really high, if you have a really high humid day, skip your spraying. You're better off not spraying lacquer paint really during high humidity. What I do is I spray all the time, so I don't care what the humidity is, but I'll spray it and I'll stick it right in a dehumidifier, or a dehydrator they call them, those little things for making beef jerky and stuff. I have one of those just for my model cars, because I spray, I don't care what the weather is, I'll spray in if it's foggy out, I'll spray and then I'll put it in the dehumidifier.
My wife has one. She hardly ever uses it, but boy, if I ever gave it a try for a model car,
Yeah.
I'd catch hell. You'd be in
Dehumidifiers work great for model
I'd
cars.
catch hell, really.
Yeah, they're great. All right, and on the next thing, what we'll do, as we're letting the bodies dry and stuff, we'll go back and we'll look at a few things we're going to be working on the kit at the table. Well, one thing you mentioned that we should mention everyone here is the sanding films and the sandpapers that we use. One thing you'll notice is when you're in the automotive industry, the sandpapers that they use, they're all to be used with, they're all called wet sandpapers, so you can get them wet and sand. And you'll notice all of these are gray. They're always a gray color or black. And that's how you can tell the difference between these type of sanding films or papers and the wood style. The wood style is usually a brown or a regular paper color. But always look for the black. And it always says right on the back, it says waterproof sandpaper or wet sand.
Yes, and it also,
Wet
folks,
sanding
it gives
paper.
you the grit in the back.
The grit also, yes.
Yeah.
And you notice
Might as well hold that up and let him get a shot of that.
yeah, you notice 180, 220.
Point right to the numbers.
This is a 220 grit here. And this one here is a 180 grit. And these are, actually you never usually see stuff like this coarse in my stuff. P800, 800 grit. This is more what you'll see in finish and paint car models. 800. These ones here. This one here is 500, then 1,000, and then 1,500. And these sanding films here, they come with this little sanding block. Now, I thought this was silly for a real size car, but because I bought this at an automotive car place. But I'm looking at it, I said it's perfect for models.
Oh, it's perfect for models.
I mean, it's the perfect size for
Yeah.
sanding the bodies. And the reason you want to use a rubber block like this and not your fingers, a lot of people will wrap it around their fingers and they'll start sanding, and your fingers will actually leave
A trough.
a trough. And you say, no, that's not possible. It actually is. When you look at a perfectly flat finish on the top of a car, you'll see your finger marks.
Now you remember, folks, I did that. Remember where I took I took the meat tray and I wrapped the meat tray around the sandpaper?
That's the same thing.
That was the same principle. You don't want that finger in there because the finger is a round surface. You have got no control.
So you use this rubber surface for your sanding, and it keeps everything perfectly flat. And That's what you want. Rub perfectly flat, full strokes across your model, and it just removes just the high stuff. That's what you want.
So now, Steve, now that you've got the paint and you're letting it dry and things like that, now what would be your next step in the car here?
Next to the car, well, what I would do, usually, I'll get all my stuff, put it out of the way here.
Yep.
And the first thing I'll assemble, usually, as I'm waiting for my body to dry, will be the engine. So I'll take all the engine parts that have to be painted. Now, you have to realize, a lot of the modern kits, they have, you know, the hot rod cars, they have chrome valve covers. They have certain parts that are going to be chrome and certain parts that are going to be painted. That's what you have to separate out. You have to decide what's going to be painted, what's going to be chrome. At this time, I'd take my sprue cutters, cut out all the engine parts that I need that are going to be, in this case, they're not going to be, the engine color will be Hemi orange.
Now, folks, you'd be referring to your instruction sheets as you do this, but Steve has built so many cars that the instruction sheets is really kind of not necessary for him, but it would behoove you to have your instruction sheet, you know, out.
Yes, definitely refer to your instruction sheet, especially, well, they're getting a lot better. A lot of the newer companies, the companies lately have been including the right information with the part callouts. You know, they'll tell you the right engine color, the right. If you want to do a factory stock car, you should really stick to the instruction of what they tell you, because most of the time they're right. And if you're doing a particular color, a particular car, you want it to be, you know.
Like Ford engine red.
Yeah, exactly. You have to do your research and to do the particular model you're building, because a lot of times they'll be generic. The the model companies will be generic. They'll tell you to paint everything in the engine compartment,
Right.
like semi-gloss black.
And also, gang, keep in mind that this particular manufacturer here that does this type of paint, he does provide you with automotive colors that will say on them, you know, Chrysler engine orange, Ford engine red, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So, you know, you can keep that in mind, and that way you are sure that you're getting the correct color on your car. But again, like I've said many times, if this is not important to you, then paint the engine purple with green stripes and have a ball. But that's not how Steve and I build, so.
One thing I noticed when I've been modeling competitively for a long time, and I've switched now that I build mostly car models. I've noticed that it's not as important as when you're building like a German airplane. The colors have to be perfect. Because you'll have some historian who'll come out of the woodwork and say, this color's supposed to be this shade, this and that. One thing about a car model I love, I say, no, this is my car. I painted it this way because it's my car.
Paint job, right?
It's a custom. It could be cars are like they're so personal. You can make them anything you want,
That's exactly
and say that's how I wanted it. That's the way it is. You know, you don't have to be any specific color or shade. It's green because I like green.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, but usually what I'll do is when I have a model drying, like I have one on deck here, usually have a bunch of stuff going at one time. I'll take the engine parts, get all the engine parts together, glue the engine up. Stripped is how it would be when it gets painted.
Now you notice also, folks, he's dry fitting everything before he's cutting out and gluing anything.
Yeah, that's very important too. Dry fit everything. Always dry fit your parts.
Yeah, get to know how they go together.
Now they go together. And take all your parts that are going to be painted, get them together. So, you know, like the engine, the transmission is probably going to be silver on this, even though the engine's orange. These are the engine orange. You get the front piece cover here, the valve covers, and the oil pan. All the parts that are going to be on the engine when it's orange, get them on it, spray it orange, and then, again, you set this piece aside while you're waiting.
Now you know that the engine in the Charger is orange due to the research that you have done on...
Right, that particular car.
What year is that car again?
67.
A 67 Charger. So you know a 67 Charger had that...
Hemi orange, that's the color they used on the Hemi orange.
Yep.
Hemi engines. And they used Hemi orange on a couple of different colors, on a couple of different engines actually, but some of the Chrysler engines are actually blue. If it's a Chrysler, it's orange, Hemi orange. No. Some of their engines are blue, some of them, like Oldsmobile has their own blue engines. And they're all different colors. They have a green, they have a black, they have a red.
Yeah.
So it's, a matter of the company,
And this is all done, folks, through research. Like I just showed you with the research books, he's doing the same thing.
It has nothing to do with the color of the car. I mean, just because the car is green, the engine could be blue.
Right, right.
I mean, it usually has nothing to do with the engine.
Right.
I mean, with the color of the car.
So what would your next step be now on this engine part now?
So what I do basically is I glue, check out all the pieces that go together, and I would build the engine. I would actually glue it together without any of the chrome accessories. Now, there's a lot of pieces on these engines now. They're getting really detailed. They'll have a separate oil pump. They'll have a separate starter on the side. Now, those parts were added on the assembly line, and they're actually usually different. The engine's orange. The starter will be black. That'll be added later.
Why don't you run through the parts tree here and show our viewers exactly what parts are on these trees. So in other words, like I can see the headers and I can see the
Okay, now this one here, this is basically the engine. This will be the sprue with the engine pieces. I've cut the two engine block halves off, and they go on either side here. But then also you'll notice the oil pan from the bottom, which will mount on the bottom of the engine. That will be painted orange also. Sometimes they're chrome. That's one of those pieces that a lot of people add to their custom car. The valve covers, they'll add chrome valve covers. The oil pans, they'll do chrome.
That, yeah.
Just the custom touch. But again, so here is the oil pan. You'll notice here is the distributor, which, the spark plug wires will go into that. This is painted black, so that also you keep it separate. Right here is the steering gear mechanism. That'll go somewhere in the chassis later. Here's the starter motor. This piece here is the front that goes on the front of the engine that has the water pump on it. This will actually get painted orange also. So this would be part of the assembly that you'd want to assemble first before you paint it. Mm-hmm. And then here you have the valve heads. These valve heads go right to the engine, and on top of these go the valve cover gaskets. Now, on this particular car, the valve cover gaskets are chrome.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
On some of the Hemis, actually some of these, some people would be building this and they say these are wrong. These should be stripped and painted orange, like this.
Yes.
Because when the car, the Dodge Charger did not come with chrome valve covers. It came with orange ones.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But these are the right shape and everything. They just be painted orange. A lot of times they'll do that. They'll put them on the parts on the parts tree and chrome them, and then you'll say, Jesus, it shouldn't be chrome. Well, it's easy for you to take it off, I think, than if you don't have it there in the first place.
Right. Now, once you've completed the engine, then what would you be like your next logical step now?
My next logical step is I try to keep everything. Okay, my engine's built, so now I can go onto my chassis because I have somewhere to put the engine, So the next thing I would do would build up the chassis. I'd go ahead, I'd take remove from the sprue. This has already been washed and cleaned, and I'd give this depending on the color it's going to be. Usually, semi-gloss black. You spray 90% of your chassis semi-gloss black. Mm-hmm. Now, if you really want to do a particular car, it might have a gray primer and some of the body spray, but that's getting into really, really, the basic thing is you just want to spray this black. And first thing you do is you do all your assemble your components as they would be. Now, this is one point where you have to look at your instructions and see the order. Because if you go putting the front end, rear end in, and you build it and glue it all in, you glue in your front end, and then you pick up this sprue and it has the mufflers. You say, wait a second, the mufflers have to go underneath the. That's why you have to assemble it in order.
That's one spot where you will follow the assembly
instruction
order on the instruction sheet instead of bouncing all over the place.
Just because you don't want to get parts put on and then prevent you from putting other parts on. So again, it's good to keep your parts separate. I keep them on the tree as long as I can. I remember when I used to get a model, first thing I do was cut everything off and end up with a big pile of parts, and it turns into a nightmare. It's so much easier to keep them clean. And
know what part is part.
Right, what part's part.
Sometimes you'll get a left part and a right part that'll be two different numbers.
Yep. And also, it's good to spray. Again, this is another thing. I spray all my parts. Usually, I'll leave them on the tree. And everyone says, well, you cut them off. Well, everywhere I do a little cut, I'll just touch up that little spot. Because to me, you can do a much better paint job with holding them and everything.
That's something I don't do.
I think it's a lot easier to me. And I've noticed because the only place that I have to put this spot is on usually where the glue spot is anyway. So it works out pretty good. But again, you don't want to jump ahead and glue your rear end in before you put your mufflers on. So you want to think ahead, thinking you want to paint these silver, and maybe this a little different color silver.
Right.
Get all this stuff. So that's usually what I'll go through each tree. I'll pull each tree and look at it, and I'll try to think to myself, well, this is going to get body, this might get body color, or
Yeah, that's your
gloss
fire.
black.
That's a
Firewall
right,
might get
right,
body
right,
color.
right.
Actually, that if that was with that car, I would have got that. But the semi-gloss, different colors of black. You can just change, like when you're doing your radiator core, you do flat black. You do the radiator support semi-gloss black, and you say they're pretty much the same color. But when you do them that little bit of a different color, you assemble them together, it looks so much nicer.
You can see it.
It looks so much better.
How are we doing time-wise here, Dave? 5 minutes? Got 5 minutes? Steve, let's break away from this and let's get into that where you've used the different body color, the different base coats to affect the tonal differences with one coat of paint.
Okay.
And we'll bring that to you folks next. Now, even though Steve and I have both said that we do not prime our initial paint colors, this is a great teaching example what he has done here. I guess I'll just let Steve explain it, but this folks is a great teaching aid if you do choose to do a base in your colors. And go ahead, Steve, tell us a little bit about what you've done here.
Okay, so what I've done is I have 5 common cars. They're all Cobra, little Cobra replicas, and I painted one of these cars for a contest, the Mass Car Model Car Club contest, and I won an award with this. I painted it's a gloss green metallic paint. It's a lacquer paint, and the brand really doesn't really matter. Any of the brands will work. And I painted the gloss green metallic paint over a gloss black base, just because somebody had mentioned it once, and I thought I'd try it just for a look. And the result was fantastic. I couldn't believe how nice it came out.
So deep and rich.
So deep. It made the color really deep and rich. So I figured, well, okay, there's black, so what if I tried white? So I sat there and thought, well, I'm going to do a little series of them. I'm going to try, I know common colors for primers or base coats are, one of the most common is, of course, the gray primer that they use under almost all automotive finishes. So I did one gray, I did one white just for the contrast to see what the opposite would be. I did one in gloss black, I did one in silver, and I did one in gold. Now these colors were all picked because I've been told at one time or another by other modelers that they thought these colors look great under a metallic. You know, everyone always says, well, if you put silver under a metallic, it really looks great.
Illuminates the metallic.
And
blah, blah,
same
blah.
thing with
Yep,
gold,
yep,
it brings out the color. So I figured, all right, well, so what I did is I took 5 of the exact same models and painted them with 5 different base coats, but coated them all with the same green metallic paint. And the result is what you can see here. There's 5 distinctly different color model cars. And everyone has their favorite. Some people like them really light, like a light metallic color, or some like the dark metallic. To me, I like the deep dark.
I think that black undercoat
The black,
is fantastic.
to me, on the green looks fantastic. But again, it makes it look like a different color. So if you want to take that same thought and you put it to a silver,
Yep, you can definitely see the tonal differences.
the tonal it's although it's subtle, it is amazing when you see them next to each other.
And if folks, if you saw this in like really good lighting conditions, there is really a distinct difference between these automobiles. So Stephen, thank you. I appreciate you coming over. I really do. I hope again we have learned something here on Simple Groundwork and Diorama Techniques, the Model Builder series. I think we're going to bring Stephen back so we can build the engine and we can get a little bit more car information for you car builders. So once again, from me, Steve Delory, Cape Cod Dave, Say goodbye, Dave.
Goodbye, Dave.
Goodbye, Dave. Once again, thanks a lot, folks. We hope you learned something and join us once again here on Simple Groundwork and Diorama Techniques with me, your host, Bill Grigg, and your instructor, along with Steve Delory. Bye-bye, folks. Bye-bye.
Take care.